I grew up in Everett. I was one of the kids on the school bus over 53 years ago now.
That was a place that I shared with my father frequently.
Every Saturday during most of the 5th and 6th grade, my adventure was to go into the Museum of Science.
Coming here for school trips all the way from Providence.
I remember when I was a child seeing the wave tank, and I was always curious about the ocean, curious about the marine world.
I walk into the lobby of the Museum of Science and there's a space capsule right in the middle of the room.
I remember very well seeing the chick hatchery, and you could sit and watch the chicks.
And I remember the gears, because it was the first place we could actually touch things. That wasn't allowed in museums a couple of generations ago.
Going into the planetarium was the big experience at that point.
The dioramas were just very dramatic.
When you push the button, the animal that was brown or sitting in a woodland area would suddenly turn white, and there was snow all over the ground.
A live owl that used to be on display here at the museum.
Spooky the Owl, I grew up seeing him on television, actually.
He was very smart, and I like that about him.
I loved the lightning show. When I first went to it, it made me very, very frightened. I was really afraid, and I think I cried.
It used to be a Fresnel lens, a great big lighthouse lens.
Guy comes out with white beard and a coat, and he's blowing the flow into the balloon and keeps it floating. And he's walking around the stage. And I figured, here's some magic I've never seen before.
The T-Rex, that was probably an unusual interest for a young girl.
And it was so humongous.
Seeing the wave tank and this balloon floating around made me think, aerospace engineering is where I want to go. And now I do software for computational biology at the MathWorks.
I build scientific experiments for the International Space Station.
I'm an environmental engineer who's worked on the Boston Harbor cleanup.
I'm senior executive producer of NOVA for public television.
Secretary of Economic Development for the state of Massachusetts.
Managing Director of the MIT Entrepreneurship Center.
Now I'm an MIT graduate, and I'm Miss Massachusetts 2004.
I help engineers start companies and help them be successful.
Retired pediatric cardiologist.
And now I'm a junior high teacher who loves inspiring the next generation of scientists.
No other single institution in all of New England, perhaps in all of America, has encouraged more young learners to think like scientists. From its roots more than 175 years ago as the Boston Society of Natural History, the Museum of Science has grown in stature to reach 1.5 million visitors every year. And its classic exhibits and experiences are seared into the memories of generations of New England leaders in business, government, science, and education. The world is dramatically different today than it was when today's leaders grew up. We are immersed in a world of technology and change, and the Museum of Science must ask, what do tomorrow's leaders need to learn today?
We live in a very technological world, and I sometimes look, we use a lot of technology, but do we understand it?
Understanding technology has lots of impacts in everybody's life. From a personal point of view, people should understand how things they deal with every day work.
We face decisions about technology all the time. We don't even know when we're making decisions about technologies, but in our consumer decisions, in our voting decisions, we're making decisions about technology.
When we make decisions about technology, we're making decisions that potentially change the environment or change the world in some way around us. And what are the things we need to think about to make good decisions about that?
Starting in 1995, the board here at the museum started to think about the next century, and it became very clear that rather than being strictly a science museum, that we had to focus more on technology.
We have to introduce a lot of new elements. Life sciences play a major role now in our lives. We have to include life sciences. We have to include technology here at the museum. And also always look for ways that we can make the visit more and more exciting. Because we're competing with a lot of other things, and to continue being these fascinating places, we have to change.
Creating the Science and Technology Center of the 21st century. That's today's vision of the Museum of Science. Enhancing and underwriting our long-standing mission in a 21st century context. Illuminating the revolution in natural and life sciences. Advancing the cause of technology literacy across America. And transforming the museum's physical presence to accommodate its expanded mission. Each of these components is a story in itself. but as a whole, they represent a giant step forward for an institution that has never been afraid to look ahead.
Museum of Science was the first to combine all the sciences under one roof. There were natural history museums before, there were health museums before, and there were museums of machinery before. But Museum of Science really took the perspective that what it was trying to do was interest people in the whole world of possibilities.
Where else but the Museum of Science can you find hundreds of interactive exhibits? A 5-story Omni screen, a huge Van de Graaff generator making bolts of lightning, a butterfly garden, discovery spaces, and knowledgeable and accessible staff and volunteer educators.
When you walk in, you see a volunteer, you can ask them any question, and they're knowledgeable, and they're excited, and they're passionate about what they're telling you.
Very, very concerned that the visitor come first. That's always impressed me.
We try and make the visitor experience unique by giving them something that so goes beyond their common sense that they have to stop and think twice about what they used to think the world was like.
To get them to look at their world a little bit differently, to get them to take the next step, to read a book about something they saw here, to watch a TV special on something that excited them, take a class they might not have taken unless they came to the museum.
The foundation of the museum's long-standing success is its interactive exhibits, programs, and most of all, its knowledgeable and friendly staff and volunteers. In creating the Science and Technology Center of the 21st century, the museum is building its endowment to ensure that the evolution of its traditional programs and exhibits continues, as well as having a talented staff to create and interpret them. The museum is also introducing new technologies to its core programs and exhibits, assuring its place as a center of lifelong learning for curious people of all ages.
Adults will play an increasing role in our agenda now.
It's important that adults understand more about science and technology. They're the decision makers, and adults want to be more informed.
We're really interested in looking at how we can serve that audience better, do a better job of engaging that audience and meeting its needs. Some of those things are just physical things like making sure there are enough places to sit in the museum, but some of them are really bringing the intellectual content, bringing the stuff that's going on in the exhibits to real life issues.
In exhibit halls, in discovery spaces, in design challenges, in the computer clubhouse. The Museum of Science touches more than 1.5 million visitors a year and has changed more than a few lives along the way.
Turning people onto the idea that, hey, you can do this, hopefully opens doors to them that they might not have opened themselves.
You see hundreds and hundreds of children every day transforming by their experience here and learning things, although they don't realize they're learning. They're here and they're enjoying the exhibits, but at the same time they leave with a perspective on technology that changes them and makes them want to learn more.
Young people who maybe were not successful in a formal school setting have found incredible success here, and it's changed their lives.
It's definitely opened up my mind and what I want to do, because in 10th grade I wasn't really, it was just like, oh, let me just finish high school and just do. But now I'm really thinking in the real world, getting a job, going to college. I'm studying computer science.
If it wasn't for the clubhouse, I probably wouldn't have gone to college or anything like that.
Under 20% of our high school students end up pursuing science or technology in college. In a lot of the Asian countries, it's 60–70%.
And you can see the growth in their economies has been stimulated by the emphasis they've placed on this.
All of our competitors, other countries around the world, are doing it. They outperform the average levels in the U.S. by a significant margin.
We cannot maintain our lead if we don't maintain lead in science and technology. You can have all the MBAs you want, but if you don't have products, you're out of the market.
This is a race we have, I hate to say it, I'm going to say we have lost and we don't even know we're in a race.
The economy is driven by technology, and currently in the schools there is very little in content in the area of technology, how the human-made world is made.
The Museum of Science, I think, is uniquely positioned to play a global leadership role in the area of technology education. And I think we have a responsibility to take what we have learned over the years and take the success that we have had over the years, not only in teaching young people about technology, but really transforming their lives.
The Museum of Science has taken on the national problem of technology literacy in the same way it faces any challenge, with enthusiasm, with focus, and in a very big way. And its work has begun in the halls of the museum itself.
The museum needs to tell a story about technology that people can find themselves in.
Traditionally in science centers we talk about discovery and exploration, which are really kind of like scientific ideas, and now we're talking about design and engineering. And what are the kinds of skills and the way of thinking to actually make something?
We inspire them to take risks. We inspire them to step up and face challenges. We inspire them to be fearless.
That inspiration cannot, must not stop at the museum's walls. And the Museum of Science has taken its mission coast to coast, founding the National Center for Technological Literacy with a critical central goal.
We're interested in bringing engineering and technology into every classroom in the country.
I didn't know what an engineer was before we started this.
In September, really, almost none of the children had an idea of what an engineer really does. Most of them thought that engineers were technicians. They didn't really realize that an engineer uses a lot of creativity alongside of their knowledge in order to solve new problems.
Kids are naturally intuitive. They're all born engineers, and we tend to educate it out of them, so we're trying to educate it back into them.
As a teacher, there are very few resources available to me that really can deeply and profoundly teach the concepts of engineering.
That lack of resources has inspired the Museum of Science to create brand new materials, curriculum guides, storybooks, video programs, and a website for teachers.
We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to start over a new science program. We're going to keep the same science program we have and integrate and implement this program into what we're already doing.
The National Center for Technological Literacy is partnering with many states across the country to work to integrate engineering as a new discipline within their curricula and learning standards in kindergarten through high school.
And there's a tremendous amount of excitement and interest. We had planned to have 50 spots for field test teachers, and we have 114 now who have applied and been accepted in the program.
This course is about using the design process to take on a project or a problem and figure out a good solution.
You have to develop possible solutions and then create a prototype and test how it works. And then if you're done, you can build your final product.
Because of this course, I learned about how buildings are built, and I'm studying to be a carpenter, so this class was very helpful.
My students are very engaged in their activities, in their projects. They're asking questions, they're figuring things out, solving problems on their own.
We've been a Boston museum. Our mission is now expanded, and everybody we've talked to date says, go for it. That's really a great idea. No one else is doing it. Someone's got to do it. There's no reason why you can't. You have some of the very best experts at technological education in the country.
At Massachusetts General Hospital, a newborn draws her first breaths, a child of the new century who may well live to see the next. We can scarcely imagine the world she will experience as an adult, the profound way in which technology will touch her life, the health decisions she will need to make, the career options she may have, what she might invent. We can scarcely imagine her life because what we understand about life is changing with dizzying speed.
We are experiencing the beginnings at this time of a biological revolution. It will impact every aspect of life. How we do agriculture, how we do environmentally sound developments, how we do healthcare, our ambition about health, how much health that we can have during life. This is going to be a great deal more important in many different ways. than the technological revolution.
The rate of change has just been unbelievable, astronomical in a sense, over the last decade or two. Molecular biology, biotechnology, the genomic revolution.
Our whole sense of what might be possible technologically and our whole sense of what we understand really is being transformed each day by advances that happen very close outside the walls of this place.
Boston is one of the most exciting places possible to be. There was a concentrated effort beginning back in the 40s to bring the medical institutions and the universities together in terms of their research.
There is no other city in the world that is closest into the revolution in the life sciences as Boston is, with all the universities and hospitals surrounding the museum. So we're in a perfect position to offer to the community and the entire world a window to the developments in life sciences and human biology and technologies that enhance human biology.
The museum's tradition in life sciences education runs deep, back to its days as one of the oldest natural history museums in America. While the establishment of the Museum of Science at Science Park in the 50s brought all the sciences under one roof, natural history education has remained vital, because natural science is the foundation of understanding the changes in our world.
It's critical that people have an understanding of how our species interacts and impacts the entire system of our planet. We are the only species that can uniquely understand but also profoundly affect our natural world. And if we go into it without an understanding of that impact, it won't have good consequences.
4 decades ago, an owl named Spooky inspired hundreds of thousands of visitors to a curiosity about their natural world. Today's new experiences for museum visitors come from a morning in the miniature ecosystem of the butterfly garden or observing the tamarin monkeys. The Science Center of the 21st century must and will acknowledge the past and present as a foundation for asking questions about the future. The boldest stroke in laying that groundwork will be in the museum's new Hall of Human Life. This dedicated 13,000 square foot exhibit hall will capitalize on experience gained in presenting the Human Body Connection exhibit, as well as a series of temporary exhibits that have included a hands-on operating room and a chance for visitors to step into the shoes of a laparoscopic surgeon.
Hall of Human Life is really about two things. It's first about looking at ourselves, our everyday experiences, our behavior, our bodies, through the eyes of today's scientists. The second part is looking at current science and new health-related technology with a critical and well-informed eye, getting a sense of how that stuff relates to your life and your future, and getting to the point where you feel like you can understand it reasonably well and are comfortable exploring it.
The Hall of Human Life will explore 4 major themes: the human life cycle, energy in the body, physical activity, and mental activity, and will bring breakthrough techniques and personalization of the experience to every visitor. Just as importantly, though, it will bring programs to learners of all ages that connect curious people with scientists, innovators, and practitioners who want to share what they've done and learned.
But the Life Sciences Initiative and Focus creates a huge opportunity for additional connectedness. And when you think about the Museum of Science and its 175-year history, that's what we do. We connect people with life science, with every ology imaginable, wherever they happen to be on their journey through science and technology and engineering.
If the museum does not take this on, we're going to have a big hole to fill. If the museum is just about the results of past technology, we are going to lose such an opportunity, and we're going to have to compensate for it in some other way.
When we're done, we will have a facility that truly stands out on the Boston skyline.
That speaks to the future of science for the next 50 years.
An exciting icon for science and technology.
A landmark in Boston for the 21st century.
Holiday Week at the Museum of Science, when everyone seems to arrive at once. These are days that push this facility right to the limit.
On any given day, it can be anywhere from 8,000 up to 14,000 people. The challenges are being able to process that number of people. You can't build a facility for 14,000 person day that you may have happen 10 times a year. So you build it for 12,000 and you try to accommodate the extra 2,000 any way possible.
Such popularity was difficult to envision in the days of the Boston Society for Natural History. But for decades, it's been a constant challenge to meet the space requirements for New England's growing thirst for science knowledge.
I knew very well that if we wanted to be modern and up to date, there was no room to increase in size.
The current site for the Museum of Science was first spotted by Brad Washburn from the window of an airplane.
And I looked out the right-hand side, and here was a great big mass of land with nothing on it at all.
He said, "Oh, I saw a piece of land," and I said, "I know that land, yes, I've been by it many times, yeah." And I just said, "Let's find out who owns it."
The whole thing was sort of a miracle.
Brad had a vision, and it kept growing, and he kept adding. And then Roger Nichols came, and there was a big addition. And I think a fair statement would be that the pieces never really connected that well.
The current building is 8 separate building projects. Each one was built to solve a particular problem.
It can be very overwhelming and confusing to visitors.
We really need to be rethinking our entire physical plant because we have such a bold and ambitious vision, and it really does require a whole different approach.
We want to accomplish 4 things with the expansion and renovation of the museum. First, improving the circulation. Then upgrading the current spaces that haven't been upgraded for quite a long time. We also need more space to accommodate all the new programs. And also we want to take advantage of the opportunity to give Boston an exciting icon for science and technology.
We wanted world-class architects to help us with this design, but at the end we wanted them to build our building, not their building. And that's a major reason why we selected Fentress Bradburn.
The challenge here was one of the greatest challenges of my career, is to try to figure out how to give this building a new image, a new life, how to make this building read as one element, as a building that has an iconic look that's memorable, exciting, something that could be a picture postcard for Boston. It's a real challenge in that sense, and also a challenge to create a building that is reflective of what's going on inside the building, so that it communicates to the public, I'm about science, I'm about technology.
The project will be built in 4 phases between now and 2014. The north wing will come first and will encompass the entire front of the street side of the building. It will bring new exhibit space, a new grand entrance and atrium, and the relocation of the Educator Resource Center and Library. Also, circulation throughout the museum will be improved.
Significantly enhance the visitor experience from the point that the visitor enters the building through the entire visit.
A Center for Learning will house the National Center for Technological Literacy and bring together program space that goes well beyond what's found in the exhibit halls.
We'd like to be able to offer classes concurrently with lectures. We'd like for people to come here and feel a sense of belonging and community and have a place where they can come meet others, to meet with scientists, meet with museum staff, and look at our collections, for example.
The River Wing will feature new spaces for adult as well as family experiences, a butterfly garden, and a brand new concept for the Charles Hayden Planetarium.
We hope to create a new planetarium theater that will allow us to have tremendous flexibility in this space.
Finally, a river walk across the Charles will complete the city's famous Emerald Necklace and will afford access to and from the museum from the riverside. Adding more than 100,000 square feet while serving 1.5 million visitors a year presents both a challenge and, characteristically of the museum, an opportunity to teach, not only about construction, but also about how to build in a way that's sensitive to the environment and consumption of resources.
I think there is a tremendous opportunity to teach when you build and to do it right from an environmental point of view, to do it right from a sustainable point of view, and to use the opportunity to build as a way to educate, as a way to tell people how it can be done.
In the model you'll see lots of things like double walls, green roofs, and many, many other ideas.
The building should be the exhibit. There are lots of ways that we can make this new building into an educational experience for the kids who come into the museum and for all of our visitors.
The mission of the museum has not changed. It's always to educate folks of all ages in the areas of science and technology. What we have done is we have expanded our mission.
The arts, medicine, education, they will always be major needs in the community. However, every now and then you come across a kink in the curve of need and where there's a greater need because of certain timing issues. And I really think that both Boston and the United States as a whole are at one of those kinks in terms of technological education.
It's not enough to excite and entertain and persuade a large group around Boston that science is approachable and interesting. I think the Science Museum has to be the best and also serve as a model for others. Not only other science museums, but also for the science curriculum around the country.
The people here are so passionate and so energized and so brilliant at what they do, and all they want to do is educate and include the Boston community in science and technology, and they're brilliant at doing that. And I'm here to support them and to help find a way to keep them doing what they're doing.
We could not do that without the support of corporations, foundations, private funders, people who can grasp the vision that we have for developing these young people that we're working with and commit to helping us to see that vision come true.
I feel like I'm contributing to something great. I feel like I'm realizing the gift that I'm given is to be an educator.
Over my career, I've spent a lot of time financing and managing change. And that's really what we're doing here at the museum at the present time. This museum is going through a real transition in leadership styles and in the way we're educating people and the vision that we have. We have a very strong base to build on, and that's really what makes it possible to do what we're trying to do.
The Museum of Science needs the help of everyone who is committed to developing the knowledgeable, technologically savvy leaders of tomorrow. Together, we can secure the museum's place as a magnet for lifelong learners, educators, scientists, and engineers in the making. The campaign for the Museum of Science is underway. Please join with us as generously as you can as we create the Science and Technology Center of the 21st century.